Alrighty, so today we're going to be talking about retirement planning, which is really an extension of everything we've been talking about. The reason why you want to concentrate on retirement planning, even when you're young, is well, obviously, as we talked about the compounding the time value of money and all of that, and as I've alluded to, the process of attaining wealth, trying to get wealth is by earning money, smart investing, things like that. But a component of that is keeping that wealth, paying as little in taxes as you're due. You don't want to overpay, and if there's a program out there or a tax advantaged method of investing, you want to take full advantage of it. So that's where retirement saving is big, because the government has all sorts of incentives that you will want to take advantage of, as does probably your employer. Your employer, more than likely, once you get established, with a career and you're working for a big evil corporation, they're probably going to have a match process where essentially, let's say you're making $100,000 a year, and if you'll put up 2%, they'll match it with 3% as long as it goes to retirement. And so now you're no longer working for $100,000 a year, you're working for 105, or not. If you can't manage your finances and you can't come up with that $2,000, then you forego that $3,000 that they were going to contribute. And so anyway, it's a good example, but my math was kind of screwed up there. You'd actually be working for 103 since you put in 2,000 yourself, but you get the point. I did work for one of the worst companies I ever worked for. They had a fantastic program. They had a 10% match, and then they got greedy and they put it upon us, and they reduced it and told us it was anyway. It's you got to watch things, but yeah, that match can be up to 10%, so it can be huge. One thing before we go, we've been talking about the stock market, and there's a lot of stuff going on right now, and a couple topics I haven't really covered. So if you're new to kind of analyzing the stock market and you want to kind of know what's going on, there's a few key things, especially in the current market, that you should be aware of to give you a better insight into what's going on. And so the stock market is kind of teetering right now, and there are some ways around that. I've got DCA, dollar cost averaging, is one tactic that can be employed, and then also diversification, not just in the stock market, but also into real estate and other things when they become available. But part of the problem right now is, if you look at the overall market, it looks like, man, the market's doing well. The S&P is up. But if you dig a little bit deeper, and this is apparent in just a sample of articles here, it's based really upon a few key companies, the Magnificent Seven, they call them. So I've already talked about NVIDIA, which is a company I love. Anyway, some of these other ones, and obviously I'm not giving investment advice. In fact, there's companies I don't like in there. Perhaps, I don't want to mention by name, Meta, but that's up to you. Whatever kind of floats, but those companies are whatever. The performance is concentrated amongst just a few companies. As they say, the S&P 500, Standard & Poor's 500, which is used as kind of an indicator of stock market health, the performance is largely based upon 7 out of those 500 companies. So the other 493 are perhaps lagging. So how can you get around this? If you were to invest in the stock market, one way to minimize, and a good strategy, is DCA, dollar cost averaging. And this works in anything, whether it be crypto or even more so in crypto because it's so volatile. But if you set aside a certain amount each month that you're going to invest, which is quite typical for what we've been talking about, by doing it that way, you don't buy in huge chunks. You buy in smaller chunks. And so when the stock price is lower, you end up with more shares. When the stock price is higher, you buy fewer shares. And so by DCAing in over time, they actually use it as I guess that'd be a verb, DCAing, but that's what they're talking about if you hear the term dollar cost averaging, and it's proven pretty successful for a lot of people. And then obviously diversification, to go out and put your whole thing in, say, even Nvidia. It's pretty high right now, and you never know what can happen to a single company, or even the Magnificent Seven. All these companies the tech sector could be rocked further. So just a couple things to point out for stock investing. There's also a couple movies that I've come across. Dumb Money is fairly new, and it's interesting. It's not that insightful, but it's kind of cool. It goes through the whole meme stock thing, and I was kind of late to the party on that, but I did have AMC, which is one of those. But I mean, the whole theory of what these guys were doing, and maybe some of you all were part of this, but it had to do with the Reddit site and all this other stuff, and it was really about the little guy, the retail investor, being enabled by all the technology that's available in terms of investing that used to only be available to the professionals. So the professionals had always referred to the retail investors as dumb money. These guys don't know what they're doing. Well, in this case, there was whatever, Roaring Kitty, the one guy who was pretty insightful and certainly had some training, and it was good. A couple flaws with that movie, though, is there's a lot of the professionals who saw what was going on, and they actually made quite a bit of the money out of the maneuvers that the retail investors were doing. And then to their whatever, maybe it was more than about money, but a lot of those poor retail investors followed it all the way up and then kind of all the way down, and not very many of them got out at the top, which probably they should have done. But it is kind of cool because it goes through the whole concept of shorting, and they're very down on shorting, because shorting, as we talked about, and I probably didn't give the best explanation, but if you watch The Big Short especially, they go through a very good explanation of it. And then Dumb Money actually shows you shorting in action. And shorting, again, is it's not a very pleasant thing to wish bad things upon somebody, but that's what you're doing in shorting. You're betting that the stock price is going to fail. The company's going to fail, that it's going out of business, and that was the tenet of that movie, that they thought whatever it was, GameStop was going to be out of the market, that the professionals, being out of touch with that segment, had assessed that company was going to fail. But what they had done was they had shorted the company excessively to beyond logical whatever things, and they got caught. And so the retail investors took full advantage of that and just squashed a few people. Anyway, but shorting, again, if you want to short a stock, what you do is, it's a fairly complex thing, and again, we're into speculation. We're not necessarily investing, so you're not using a big chunk of your money. This isn't where you put all of your eggs. Not good. But anyway, you're essentially renting shares. So I use the company Tesla because that's the only one that I actually shorted. But anyway, in a shorting process, what you do is you buy. Well, you rent the shares. Let's just use the rent terminology. You rent the shares and you sell them today. Well, since you're renting them, you haven't actually paid for them. So, whatever the mechanism is, whether it's a broker or somebody on the other side of the trade. Anyway, they make their shares available to you, so you rent them, and you rent them for a certain period of time, and you're paying some interest on it, so you don't want to make it an excessive period of time, and then you need to return those shares to them. So you need to go, you rent these shares, you sell them, you're selling something you don't own, so logically you need to replace those shares at some point in the future. So you have to get back in the market, you have to buy those shares to replace the ones that you rented, so that you have something to return. And the dangerous thing is, you're hoping, the whole concept of the short is you're expecting the stock price to go down. So let's say you buy 100 shares for $100 each. Well, you're hoping to be able to, in the future, buy these 100 shares that you need to replace for $50 a piece. If you can do that, you doubled your money. if those shares go up in price, ooh, and they can go up an unlimited amount, which you would see if you watch the Dumb Money thing, Dumb Money movie, you would realize that they can go up an infinite amount. You know, the sky's the limit, and especially when they get stuck in a short squeeze, which means these people need to replace these shares, yet nobody's willing to sell them. They have to just keep offering more and more money till finally somebody will sell them, and it can be quite painful, and you know, companies can go out of business doing that. Wolf of Wall Street, yeah, this one's a little rougher around the edges, but it does show that darker side that you're going to see that this guy, you know, Jordan Belfort, I guess his name was, made a tremendous amount of money. Where did he get that money? From stupid people, from retail investors primarily, and you know, penny stocks and things like that. And so those people are out there, and so you need to. It's like going to the casino and seeing how large that casino is and wondering, you know, who paid for this whole casino? I wonder where they got all this money. Yeah, they got it from you. And that's the same thing with Wolf of Wall Street. So then one last thing, it's kind of obsessing me right now, but what I have here is a chart of Bitcoin cycle. So as volatile as crypto is, there is some predictability to it, perhaps. Anyway, again, not investment advice, but we're kind of coming up on a little bit of a cycle here that could be big things. And this was back at 2021, so the rest of the chart would play out and Bitcoin's starting to build and could happen. Pure speculation. Do not put all of your money in this. But, you know, for me, I watch a little bit of sports, but I certainly would never bet on any of that. And I don't go to the casinos that much because I know who built those casinos. You're gonna lose. But so that decadent part of my personality that does like to gamble does get involved a little bit in crypto. Anyway, only money you can afford to lose, less than 10%. And keep in mind that all those evil people from the Wolf of Wall Street, they have moved into the crypto space. They always call it the space. But anyway, yeah, you can go on you know, YouTube right now, and you can find all kinds of people pumping, you know, all kinds of altcoins, which are even worse than most crypto, and complete, oh, this is going to get you immense wealth. And yeah, they're usually pump and dump kind of people, where they drive the price up of something for no rational reason. When it gets to a peak, they sell, and you lose it all. So be very, very careful. Crypto itself, Bitcoin itself, is sketchy enough. Getting into altcoins and the rest of it, and again, you know, full disclosure, maybe I have a couple of those, but it's money you can lose. So keep that in mind. All right, I just had to get that out because there's, you know, this stuff can actually be kind of fun and can motivate you to save because you want to, you know, and in terms of useless things to spend your money on, you know, dedicating a small portion to that and learning a little bit with a potential for a gain is worthwhile. So let's say you are a complete crypto degen and you lost it all. Where are you going to end up when it's time to retire? Because you didn't invest. You speculated continually. So you're going to be reliant on Social Security. And oh boy, are you going to be disappointed. Social Security, you need to see Social Security. The Social Security Administration is quite upfront. They've got a pretty good website that shows you how much, you know, your monthly income would be, and it doesn't equate to what you'd want for your retirement, guaranteed. You know, I've worked, you know, since age 14 or whatever, and I've done the whole Social Security route, and at age 62, I'll be able to get about $2,200 a month. Could I get by on that? Oof. I mean, if you own property, if you're not paying rent, okay. If you own a lot of property, well, you're paying property tax. So anyway, there's just, you're going to have a pretty meager lifestyle trying to get by on Social Security. So look at that. Don't think that, oh, I'm good. I've got Social Security out there. I've had I had an older couple working for me, and they didn't make that much money working for me, but it was significant because they were just on Social Security, because Social Security is not what you would hope it would be. And then the other problem with it is it's been rated. Social Security does not, you think that there's an account out there with your name on it where all the money goes and it's just waiting for you. Yeah, until politicians go in there and take from those accounts. So it is underfunded. It's also available for disabled. Well, more and more people are disabled, so that lessens the amount of Social Security. I wouldn't advocate watching the presidential debates, but if you did, there was quite a bit of discussion on Social Security and how are they gonna make this program better financially? Are they going to up the retirement age? Yeah, not on the old people, not on the people that are currently in the system, because those people tend to vote. But people like you down, 20, 30, 40 who aren't thinking about Social Security, you're probably going to see that Social Security number, which is now at age 62 is the first time you can take it for a lesser amount, or you can get the full amount at 67. You're probably going to see that marched out to something higher, probably up to age 70. Which, oh, by the way, is beyond the life expectancy of a lot of people. So it's kind of a nasty little trick. Life expectancy has actually declined the past couple of years, which is indicative of bigger problems. But anyway, it's the system is not good. Not for you to. Well, I'm to say it's not good. It's not in good financial health. Anyway, so. What else? There's other programs that will pay on Social Security. So, yeah, monthly payments to children, other things. It's all based upon your contribution. So again, you would look at the website and you would get an idea. 40% of your annual income. I don't know if it equates to that, but anyway, reduced benefits at 62. And for me, because I have so little trust in that system, yeah, I will be taking it on day one. But again, it's not a welfare program. It's money that theoretically I've put in there that's waiting for me or waiting for you. Limited income. This is unfortunate. It's a disincentive where if you may make, say, more than about $19,000 a year, Social Security reduces your Social Security benefits. So essentially it's means tested, meaning that if you've got other funds available, your Social Security goes down, which sounds fair, but not when you think about it, that it's not a welfare program, that you actually put money in there. So if somebody is in good shape and wants to work, sometimes they're disincentivized from working, which is not a good benefit. Retirees are living longer. Well, we kind of fixed that now, didn't we? Retiree numbers continue to grow, and many people, most people, hopefully, have independent means. Now, again, Social Security would be more significant if you don't have much in the way of bills. So home ownership is a huge thing, although it's going down. But yeah, if you're still a renter and you've got Social Security as your only income, that's not going to be a lifestyle you're probably going to want to look at. So go to the Social Security site, type in your numbers, and it'll tell you, how you're accumulating and on what you've got. So employee sponsored plans. So anyway, sorry about that. I don't know what it is about dogs and recording, always the same. Anyway, employers and employees contribute. So if there's a match program, you definitely want to take advantage of that. Penalty imposed for early withdrawal. Yes, there is. If you're younger than age 59 and a half, you will pay a 10% penalty. And that income, that money you take out, will also be added to your income for that year, so your taxes will go up in that particular year. But it's nice to know you can get at it. And then also, there's all sorts of hardships. Some hardships being less impactful than others that allow you to withdraw that money without a penalty. So now, what I'm a huge fan of, and I've done throughout my life, is take loans against my, in this case, a 401k, but some of these employer sponsored plans, a 401k being one of them, and there is no penalty with that because that money is going to be returned, and you pay interest, but you pay the interest to yourself. So that's definitely an option, and I've taken them for. Typically, you can take up to $50,000, and or I think 50% of whatever you have in the account, whatever's less. But I've used it on a number of occasions for like business loans. If I want a quick loan with no paperwork involved, because the collateral is there. I'm borrowing against myself. There's no paperwork. I've literally done this on my phone, perhaps even when driving a car, which would be dangerous, but it can be done. Defined benefit plan. Okay, this was the old school type thing. We used to have, they had defined benefits, and they had, like, let's say you're working in a classical type thing. You're working for General Motors, and you're going to be working for them for 30 years, and you're going to get the retirement. That's pretty amazing. Those plans don't typically exist. Even the military plans have been cut back. But let's say you've got a plan that's with an employer that does have, let's say they just on their match, that company I was talking about that would give 10% match. Well, if you only work for the company for 6 months, there was a clause in there that said you're not vested. You're only vested after 5 years. So they wanted to minimize turnover, and so a way of doing that, a tactic, was to not give you full ownership of your retirement money until you had worked a certain number of years. And that process was called vesting. So I think if you quit after 3 years, you walked away with half of it. If you stayed 5 years, you were entitled to all of it. So it was a motivational thing to keep you there. Defined contribution plan. Yep. Employer sponsored, specific guidelines. Allows you to invest the funds as you wish. Usually there's certain caveats on that where they have certain brokerage companies that can be used. And again, one caveat too, kind of a cleanup item that came to mind was when I was talking about brokerage companies, whether it be, again, my kind of old faithful is Fidelity, but Fidelity, Vanguard, T. Rowe Price, any of those, I've said, yeah, they're all kind of the same. They're all good companies. There are some kind of newer companies, and most of you may even be involved with Robinhood. Anyway, not all those companies are the same. Some of those companies, well, most of them offer no commission trading. Well, Robinhood's kind of a different company where their business model, and the other companies have been guilty of this to a certain extreme, but Robinhood openly admits that they do a thing called front-running trades, which means they provide the information to outsiders. They let them know that your trade is pending, basically. And when I talked about the lines of communication in terms of the speed of the trades, how certain brokerages will want, fantastically short cable runs to the central computers where the trading's actually occurring, so that they can perhaps trade the security that you're about to buy just fractions of a second before you do. And by doing so, they can realize a very, very small, but, perceptible profit by doing that. So, again, it's almost like a Facebook thing where you are the product that's being sold your information, knowledge about what you're trading, when provided to an outside company, can be an income stream for some of these brokerages, and Robinhood may be one of the primary ones to do that kind of stuff. So anyway, I'm more affiliated with the big boy exchanges rather than the user-friendly ones. But Robinhood, I guess, is, I know a lot of people use it. Kind of fun. It's got, good graphics, great interface, but would not be my choice, but each to his own. All right. Decision to contribute. Yeah, most people wait too long to save. Start saving at an early age, right? There's going to be a question on the test. How early should you start saving for retirement? As soon as possible, right? Or something to that effect. You can't start too early because of the time value of money. Okay? And again, if you're one of these people, and I completely understand, I want no part of the stock market. Well, part of it, if your employer's offering a match, you need to work through that and maybe embark upon the program I was talking about, where you take their money, put it in the market, and then you sell it to the first opportunity and invest it in the thing of your choice, perhaps real estate or something like that. But anyway, you need to take that match if it's available, or else you're leaving money on the table. But anyway, benefits of a defined contribution plan, yep, is like extra income. So I think I beat that to death. Employees encourages to save, certainly, and tax deferred income. So when we talk about a 401k, a thrift savings plan, an individual retirement account, all of those are tax deferred. So they're not tax exempt, they're tax deferred. Meaning if you invest money, into those plans, that portion of your income is not taxed. But when it's withdrawn, and this is, hypothetically going to be when you're retired, and perhaps, where Social Security might be a significant part of your income, and you're only, you don't have much in the way of income, theoretically your income taxes should be lower. Now that's predicated on the fact that income tax rates in the future will be lower or will be the same. I'm not sure that's a great bet, but anyway, that's how tax deferred income is. Anyway, it's we all do it, but it's not tax free. Now there's another concept, and this specifically applies only to a Roth IRA. Roth is just the dude's name, the senator or whatever who established this plan, so his name goes along with it. On a Roth IRA, you get your contribution, the money you put in that plan, is after taxes. You pay taxes on it before you put it in that plan, but any of the money you take out of that plan later is without taxes. You've already paid the taxes on it once, so all the earnings, if you double, triple the amount in that account, all that money that comes out of there is tax free. So very good, that and the real estate situation, where if you own your own home and you've lived out of 3 out of the past 5 years, the money that you make from that investment is also tax free. So there's a couple things in the tax code that really affect how much money you end up with. Okay. Yep. So this is kind of typical, employer and sometimes the employee can usually turn from a number of different funds. So yeah, if you wanted to use your employer plan and invest in crypto, probably not happening. They tend to favor the more conservative investments. They tend to favor a select number of companies. But as I said, if that company, for example, is Fidelity or Vanguard or whoever, you can, through their website, through their plan, you can typically get to the types of investments you want. Theoretically, this is how people are supposed to invest. When you're young, you can go for higher risk things, because if there's a burble, things generally go up on a trend. But if there's a dip, you've got more time to recover. And so you play that out, medium, and when you're getting a little older, and then low risk investments, yeah, you're getting close to where you're pulling this money out rather than putting it in. So you want that stability, theoretically. So these numbers are starting to get older, but yeah, if you just use the roughly 20,000 for the amount of money that you can put in a tax deferred account, and then there's some catch up contributions as you get older. So as I said, yeah, tax and penalties if you take it out before 59.5. So that penalty is 10%, and that tax is that it's added to your income, and there you go. So I mentioned the Roth, and this is actually a pretty good deal, which means that it's, in the sights of perhaps the government to get rid of it. From a government perspective, this is money that they feel they're entitled to, and getting you to keep it is not in their best interest. So contributions are taxed when contributed, so they're actually taxed before they're contributed, but not when withdrawn. So 403B, so you're going to find that there's a tax deferred mechanism, whether it be called a thrift savings plan if you're in the military, a 401k for most corporations, a 403B if, say, you're working for a school or the government, outside of the military. If you're self-employed, there's plans. There's all sorts of mechanisms, so everybody kind of has a chance to contribute to these types of plans. So here's a simplified 1 to 10 employees, so a small company, but it's coming just from the employer. You can, individually, obviously the name, individual retirement account. You don't have to, have the employer do the contribution. You can have both. But Roth, for example, has got limits on it, so you can't put tremendous amounts of money in a Roth. But typically you want to max out a Roth if it's available. But again, that has to do with your philosophy, whether you think taxes are going to be higher or lower in the future. Profit sharing, yep. Some of the, good companies will do this to incentivize employers. So anyway, companies. What's happened with companies recently is, they kind of read human nature, and let's say a company, because benefits are expensive, and let's say a company can offer a great benefits plan, but they're only going to pay $70,000, where you get another company that pays $100,000 but basically no benefits. They have found that most employers are going to go after that $100,000 because they're not thinking about retirement. They're not thinking about benefits. I mean, again, different people may be inclined to look more at the benefits, and good on them. But you've seen the benefit packages shrink because they found that people want the higher salary. I mean, I have friends who work for, there's an airline in Europe, Ryanair, where the pilots are paid quite well, but if they want water and they're on the flight, they got to buy it. When they need to stay in a hotel because they're over, they're outside of their home, that's on them. They've got to go get a taxi and get to the hotel. And so, it's just funny how different employers kind of work things out. But what you're seeing now is a lot of employers offer a higher salary and less benefits because many times it's a way to attract employees. Employee stock ownership program, yep. And as I spoke to, I participated in this because, again, it was free money, but I did not want to have stock in the company that I'm working for because, again, it does not diversify. If I'm working for a company and it goes out of business, I've lost my job, and oh, by the way, the stock price that was my investment just went to nothing. So not a good scenario. Rollover is a key term that you'll be familiar with, or you're going to be crushed. If which is typical, people switch from one company to another throughout the course of their career. If you cash out, if you take a distribution, whatever terminology you use, other than rolling it over, if you do something where you actually end up with a cash in your hand or a check made directly out to you, you have just generated a huge taxable event. You're probably not 59.5, so you're going to incur a 10% penalty and all this other stuff. So the financial institutions are smart enough to caution you not to make that withdrawal. Typically, you just go to the company that you're going to be associated with your new employer, and you roll over your individual retirement account from your previous employer. Or you can keep it there, but it's just going to be more mail, more confusion, more accounts. I like to kind of consolidate things when possible. Keogh plan, just another method of saving for retirement. Pre-tax income to a retirement account, so another basically tax-deferred account. And then we've talked about SEPs. Traditional IRA, so this is something you can initiate yourself. You won't hear the term traditional IRA that much. You'll just normally hear IRA, which, unless it says Roth, it's going to be a tax-deferred one. Roth is a specific thing, so different than that. Yeah, depending on your tax situations, there's limits. You can make, normally people will not make non-tax deductible ones. They'll take it up to the limit of what is tax deductible. Interest earned is tax deferred, so not tax exempt, just being postponed. And then again, 59.5. Hit that 1,000,000 times. Roth. Yeah. They don't want you to put too much money in the Roth because it is a pretty good program. So, and then catch-up contributions if you're older. But again, doubling up to catch-up, you're not going to end up with as much money as if you would have made steady contributions throughout the course of your life. So again, another summary. Shelter from taxes until withdrawn on the IRA, and then the Roth IRA, boom, it all comes out. Marginal tax rates at the time of your contribution. So if you're really getting killed on taxes and you want to try and get your income down a little bit, maybe a traditional IRA would be beneficial. And here's when you withdraw your money. Are you going to be somebody working throughout the course of your life, which is not necessarily a bad thing? Probably keep active. If you anticipate taxes to perhaps go up in the future, you may not see the benefits of the tax-deferred strategy. Annuity is kind of like insurance, but completely different. On annuity, the longer you live, the more you get paid. Insurance, the only way you can collect on it is to die. So, on standard life insurance. So an annuity, what you do in this sort of scheme is you give, say, an insurance company, or typically the ones who offer annuities, you give them $10,000 and they start making you $100 payments, every month or every week for, the rest of your life, whatever the numbers are. But it's a series of annual payments. And those continue for the rest of your life. If you die next week, not such a good deal. You didn't get that many of those payments. But if you live for a long, long time, those payments are going to accumulate. So the problem with annuities, though, is that annuities they're a kind of a complex um, product. So it's going to involve a salesperson, licensed and all this stuff, who's going to take a commission. So part of that initial contribution is going to be lessened by that commission, and the performance of the annuities, the amount that they're paying you, is going to be based upon the insurance company's investments, and their investments are not, whatever. It could be a variable annuity or a fixed annuity, but again, the traditionally, because insurance companies have to be so conservative in their investing, the returns are not going to be typically as high. But I don't have any annuities, but it is an option. So variable annuity, yeah, that amount can change based upon the performance. The fees, commissions, everything else. And if you pull it all out, yeah, there's going to be a charge, a penalty for that. Commissions. So anything else, yeah, lower fees. But if you had a stack of money, not sure what to do with it, you want to set yourself up, you're looking at whatever, some Social Security scenario where you're just going to have a fixed income and you want a little bonus income coming in, that might be a way to do it. But the best thing you could do for retirement is, outside of all this, is probably home ownership, because housing is going to be if you're on Social Security, living on Social Security and renting, your housing component is going to be a significant percentage of your monthly expenses. If you own your home, then you're, in better shape. Estimating your retirement needs. So those charts that we started out with at the first part are much more powerful. Those Excel spreadsheets. The amount you're going to need. This is where, again, the power of some of these investment websites are quite useful. You can plug in some of the numbers. You can make just like you can make a reasonable estimate of what your life insurance needs are going to be. You can make a reasonable estimate of what your retirement needs are going to be. And again, the great unknown with retirement is how long you're going to spend in that scenario. Hopefully you're going to live long, and it would be, pretty desperate to run out of cash halfway through. Estimating your retirement savings. So, again, but we're all buying Bitcoin, so we don't have to worry about this, right? Woohoo! Relationship between the annual return, annual savings. Yep, as interest rates go up. But you're looking at longer term investments. Again, the stock market had been getting about 10%, and I think they will, but it's a much more challenging investment environment than it was just a few years ago. Maybe things will change, but right now things are kind of scary. Measuring the tax benefits from a retirement account. Yeah. Just simple math problem. But why would you do that? Typically not going to happen. If your income is that high, you are going to be penalized. Okay, so we talked a little about retirement planning. Retirement planning is, most people of college age are not thinking about that, but I'm not retired, but I've pulled upon that nest egg in my retirement for not only peace of mind, but also investments, throughout the course of things. And I have taken loans. I actually took a distribution one time when it was kind of an ugly situation, and yeah, it was painful. I knew what was going on. I paid the penalty, and but I had access to that money. So that peace of mind that's available through having a pretty good nest egg in your retirement is quite useful. Estate planning. So this is after you're gone. Your estate is what remains. You've passed away, but your estate would hopefully continue, or at least be dispersed to your beneficiaries, to your loved ones, to your family. And steps you take now will greatly affect how things work. I mean, everybody's going to die, and you can make this a very, very painful situation and leave people in complete chaos, or you can make it a situation where people can concentrate on missing you and being a good person, and not worrying about where are we going to get the money to even bury this person. You have a lot to do with this. In fact, you can have quite a bit of money, quite a few assets, and still leave people in a complete mess if you don't have a will, if you don't leave some sort of instructions for how things are to be distributed. So anyway, a couple terms we'll talk about. Estate. Yep, that's the everything, all the debts are paid, and then what remains is your estate, the assets that remain. Estate planning, how this whole thing's going to go. And people don't like to talk about this. They don't like to think about it, but you will have to think about it. And if you're on your deathbed trying to do this stuff, it's really going to take away from what's already a pretty sad situation. So what you need to do is not that difficult. You need to have a will. Okay? A will is only one thing. It is a written document signed by you and the lawyers and the witnesses that comports with the state's requirements for transition of that. It's none of this, you'll hear people talk about a holographic will or some type of will that they drew up by themselves, on just a piece of paper. None of that don't bother. It's not going to, there's a court that's run by each state. It's called probate court. And they control, how estates are distributed. And the only document they recognize is the will, the will that's in accordance with that state's requirements. So it's not that difficult to get a will, to have a will made, and it will last for, some length of time, 5-10 years at least, unless your situation really changes. But if you keep your will fairly general in terms of not specifying, like, say, individual addresses of a piece of property you may own, or saying, my children, rather than listing out their names, and every time you have a kid or whatever, you'd have to change it. No, you can keep it general enough to where the will have more enduring effects. What you do need to do is, if you move from one state to another, you have to get a new will, because it's, a will is each state is maybe slightly different, and but it's not that hard. And a paralegal can help you with this. A paralegal's like a lawyer, but they don't actually sign off on the thing, but they work for, let's say, $50, $100 an hour, versus a lawyer that works for $250 an hour plus. You don't really need the lawyer's involvement in this, other than in the final, document thing. So, yeah, maybe, I don't know. Lawyer depends on how you're going to get it done, but certainly it's going to be less than $500 to get a will done in most cases, I believe. Anyway, you would fill in the document, and they would, word processor type thing, where you come back in a few days, and they grab some people who happen to be around the office to witness it and sign it, and they give you a copy of it, and boom, you've got a will. So not that difficult, but makes a huge difference. If you die without a will, they call that intestate, and that means all your assets and everything now have to go to that same probate court that is quite overburdened, and they're going to deal with people who had wills first, obviously. People who didn't have a will, who died intestate, showed that they really didn't care, and they're going to have that same sort of attitude. They're going to be like, well, this person really didn't care how their assets got distributed, so we're going to take kind of our sweet time, and when we get to it, we're probably going to take a larger portion for the lawyers and probably a little bit more for taxes, and we're going to penalize this person. And so it's completely avoidable. So why do you have a will? Yeah, ensures your will, your estate is distributed as desired. Now the whole theatrical thing, I leave my, fishing equipment to my, that's not typically found in a will. All you need is something simple that says my property will be, distributed equally amongst whoever. If you want to go out and designate certain pieces of property to certain people, you can do that. But again, I would urge you to stay away from being too specific, because it's just going to make it a less enduring will, a will that's maybe going to, be less relevant later on. So beneficiaries, just like insurance, they're the people who are going to get the money or the property or whatever. I talked about intestate. There it is spelled out, the condition of dying without a will. Court appoints an administrators who, they make decisions, whatever. You have no control. You're obviously not there, and your beneficiaries, they're like, hey, we need some money to get this person buried. Yeah, we'll get to it. The boys at the crime lab are going to get right on that one. It's like the Big Lebowski with this. Anyway, off on a tangent. Created a valid will. Okay, you got to be of legal age, right? Mentally competent. Not much of a burden for most of us. Not under undue influence. Signed and dated. 2 or 3 witnesses who are not beneficiaries. Use of attorney recommended. Yeah, I would say use of attorneys kind of did it. As a military retiree, I can go up on the base and just go through their little whatever self-help thing, and I fill out the paperwork. I come back the next day. They grab a couple people in the office, and it's just exactly what I said. In that case, there's no charge, and they, I have a will, but I maybe do that every 10 years or so. When they give you that paper back, though, it's not like they keep a copy of it. They give it to you. So you might want to make a few copies. You might want to give one of those copies to the beneficiary. Obviously, you're kind of spilled the beans on how you're going to distribute things, but it's better that they have a copy so that they can produce that thing. In any case, if you did have a safe deposit box, most of us don't, but if you did, that'd be a good place for it. A fireproof safe is a great place, but make sure that people know how to access it. Common types of wills. I'm like I said, I'm not going to go there. There's only one will. There's, the will. So when they start differentiating, state law in absence of a will or in absence of specificity, the state's laws are going to prevail. But if you specify in your will how you want things done, it will happen. Distribution of the estate, yep. Executor, can be a lawyer, can be whoever. Somebody is going to manage, typically when somebody passes, if they have some assets, those assets would be put into a trust. Things are paid off, things are sold, like say cars, if somebody doesn't want them unless they're specified in the will, they'll get rid of all those, well, not get rid of, but sell all those assets, and they'll just kind of do it'll take some time, but they'll settle all the assets in that estate. And then once all that's done, then they'll distribute that in accordance with the will to the beneficiaries. If you've got children involved, obviously it's more complex, but you may want to have a plan for that. signature, funeral arrangements, yeah, if you want to do that, but that's outside of the will. The big thing is that you have some sort of will that is signed and it's witnessed. And hopefully it was prepared by, a paralegal and then blessed by a lawyer, and you're good. Changing your will, yep. If you move to a different state, or if you marry or divorce, that's a pretty big life event that's going to necessitate that. Codicil, yeah, in the world of, computers and word processing and all that, yeah, not. We just usually come up with a new will. We don't need a bunch of extra documents that are just going to confuse things. Just drop a whole new will, cut and paste from the old one. Not a big deal. So probate, state court, the executor. The executor, a lawyer will sometimes work at the direction of the executor because they do this. There's certain lawyers, probably not a great business. But if your alternative is being like a child support lawyer, this might be a welcome respite. But anyway, these people do this stuff all the time. They've done it before. And if you have things in order, it can go pretty smoothly. So sample will, again, most of these things would be blank. You just kind of fill in the blanks. You spend an hour or so going through your document, and then you get the will done. The important thing is that you get the will done. Now, we'll talk a little bit. I'm not sure if we're going to reference it here in the slides, but yeah, these witnesses, you don't need to bring your witnesses along with you. You don't need to know these people. It's simply a legal requirement, which means if you're working in a legal office, you're probably going to be witnessing hundreds of wills because you're just the closest person that they can grab. You're not doing anything other than witnessing the signature of this person, and you don't have to know that person, so not a big deal. Okay, I'll just talk about it now. So who needs a will? If you're it's kind of like life insurance. If you're a young single person, do you need a will? It's not so critical. But if you've got a family, if you've got a lot of bills and things like that going on, your importance for needing a will is increasing. Because, again, it's going to affect the timing of when they can get access to funds to get things settled out, when they can get access to accounts. There's going to have to be like a death certificate provided to all these creditors and all these other things, and it's just going to take a lot of time unless you've got things fairly streamlined for them. So make things better, get the will done if you've got a lot of people depending upon you. Estate taxes, yeah, depending on what your mindset is, sometimes I call these death taxes, sometimes I call them inheritance taxes, but there are exceptions, up to a certain asset limit, but a popular thing, amongst politicians is when they want to try to increase revenue is to raise estate taxes. And so if you've got a business or something like that, structuring your business or the ownership of your business may be beyond the scope of this course, but you can greatly influence things by how you have things set up so that it doesn't all end up. For example, if you have a sole proprietorship, if you have a business and it's just under your name, when you die, that business died. It doesn't endure. As opposed to a corporation, an LLC or something like that, that entity exists because it's got its own personhood. So kind of grim, but it does make a huge difference. Yeah, so most of us were doing quite well. So we're talking in the millions typically before a lot of these taxes cut in, but laws are always changing. But yeah, 40%, oof, right off the top. Keep in mind that, this money that's been accumulated had taxes paid on it. So this is really a pretty steep hit. Proper planning can reduce these taxes, and not in Alaska. Yep, certain high tax states, obviously they've got bills to pay. They're looking to do what they can. You know, some of these things are not such a big deal, but if you're, say, like a family farmer and you're not making that much money, but because of the business involved, you've got tremendous amounts of land, it could put the business, you know, put the farm right out of business in a hurry. When you know, you didn't gain any money, but all of a sudden you have to pay 40% of the value of that farm because that person died with that farm in a sole proprietorship. So yeah, it can have huge implications if your estate is not managed properly. Trusts and gifts, yep. You can, you know, for example, if you have some land and you're in this situation where, well, you could actually do a reverse mortgage, which I'm not going to really address here so much, but say you've got a big piece of property that's property taxes are just eating you alive, and you're going to lose the property. You can perhaps make some sort of arrangement where that property is transferred to some sort of charity upon your death, and in return for that, you could escape paying property taxes for, you know, the rest of your natural life or something like that. There's always different programs out there, but those can be written into agreements as part of your estate planning. Living trust, yeah, revocable trust, or irrevocable trust. So if you make one of these agreements where you're going to give this land or this asset to certain charity, and you're going to get some benefits right now, obviously that would not be cool to have that revocable. You know, you can't say, yeah, I've taken all the benefits, but yeah, I want to do over. I don't want that deal anymore. No. If you make that deal, it's going to be a irrevocable agreement. And living trusts are slightly different, but again, we're getting kind of into the weeds in terms of estate planning. If you're that high of wealth an individual where you've got these kind of concerns, you're going to hire some people to help you through with what the current system is, you know, at the time of your expected passing. Gifts to children. Yeah, you can't just say, oh, I gave that all to my child. There's limits per the IRS how much you can give. Now, you might start, you know, embarking on dispersing some of your wealth as you're approaching that system. If you say, oh, upon my death, you're all going to get $1 million, the smarter child that's a little, you know, grizzly would say, hey, how about you just start kicking some of that money our way now, rather than it all be subject to taxes later on. Anyway. Yeah, and you can give all of it to charitable organizations, and they're more than happy. And some people, you know, it might give them more control. You could put this in your will, where you know you've got a vast amount of money that's going to be subject to this 40% tax. I would rather have more control over that money and give it to the cause of my choice, so I'm leaving it all to whatever, you know, some animal rights thing or something. I'm not saying all government programs are evil. All would be an overstatement. Living will, okay, I don't even like that term because they're confusing will. Oh, I've got a living will. I've got a will. No, their will means a specific thing. That one document that's signed, notarized, all that other stuff. Living will, preferences about your disabilities. Good to have, but I just wish they would use the will document. Power of attorney. Power of attorney, again, the way they're tossing around these terms. Power of attorney is a useful document, but almost always you should never have a power of attorney. You should have a limited power of attorney, right? If you give somebody a power of attorney, they can act in your stead on anything. So let's say, you're leaving the state and you want your buddy to sell your car. So it'd be just easier if you could go to the DMV and take care of this for me. So I'm going to give you a full power of attorney and have you sell my car. Well, you come back and the dude has sold your house and he sold this and he put your children in. I mean, he could do whatever because they could act in your stead on anything legally. So what you want is you want a limited power of attorney. And, what you would put in this, and again, a lawyer would probably be involved, or at least a paralegal, is going to say, in regards to my, 1968, Chevy truck, VIN number, whatever, this person can act in my capacity. Make sure you have some specificity to it. A power of attorney, just a general power of attorney, is a dangerous thing. Maybe your spouse would have that, if you trust him or her to that extent. But in almost all cases, a limited power of attorney is the document you're looking for. Especially when they say specific decisions. You've given them the ability to make all decisions. Durable power of attorney, yeah, for healthcare. So again, we're getting beyond personal finance. We're getting into other aspects. But yeah, there's other things that are important. But I don't know. Especially if they've got the will in their hand, knowing if you die, they get $1 million. And they're the ones to make the decision about pulling the plug. I think I'll keep that authority right now. Thank you. Maintaining the documents. So, safe and convenient place. Multiple copies are kind of the answer here that are, legally represented. Pictures on your iPhone are probably not going to work. But something that will work, and again, when you're getting the will drawn up by the lawyer, talk to them, figure it out. Key individuals, probably the beneficiaries. People have a vested interest in keeping track of that thing. Key documents. Yeah, some of these are more important than others. A lot of these things are online. I would not want too much clutter. Ownership of real estate. Yeah, the state keeps pretty good track of that. There's a registrar for that. Personal loans, yeah, those people will find you. Credit card debt information, likewise. They know where you live. Life insurance policies, yeah, I mean, this is probably a good idea. Life insurance policies, they don't know you die until they're told, until they see a death certificate. So as long as the policies keep coming in, their payments keep coming in, they're probably not going to realize you have passed. But anyway, the will is something that's you need to have on hand, paper copy. Personal tax returns, not so much. Bank account. Anyway, knowledge of all these things, kind of a list of what they are, maybe some account numbers, but anyway, if you want to have one general fund, that's all good. So, not having homework this week because I think we hopefully are working on that project, the term project. Again, it's kind of a hard over requirement. The 4 to 5 pages, don't give me one page and run it up to the end and say, oh, that's all I could do because I ran out of time. You've got time. We're not going to have class during Thanksgiving week. Not that I want you to spend your whole Thanksgiving doing it, but you've got kind of enough information now to figure out what needs to be done. And again, the big brokerage websites are kind of your friend here. Most of those guys, they're catered. Most of those companies are catered to developing you as customers. So they offer all kinds of useful and free information and charts and graphs and things like that. You can go to the websites. I mean, part of your report will be, just like I showed you, the Social Security website. See how much they're, you're going to potentially be getting in the future. And hopefully realize that you don't want to be eating, ramen in the dark in a cold house because you're down to just Social Security. I mean, it can happen. People get, especially with bills, with medical bills and things like that, people can end up in desperate situations. But we're trying to plan to avoid that. So we don't know what's going to happen, in your future lives, but you can plan for the best, and to have a plan that's completely reliant upon Social Security is not, it's not a plan. But anyway, that's just one aspect of it. You'd look at your investments. You'd look at, potential employers. I mean, that stuff is readily available too. You can find out what their programs are, what their matches are. You're thinking about, well, we're going to have, potentially some children, or you already have some children, and we want to save for their education. How's that going to be done? If it goes into a simple investment plan, that's going to get you a B or a C grade. If it goes into a 529 that's, tax deferred or tax exempt, if it's used for education, well, that's smart, and so that will get you the better grade. So go through all this stuff, and again, tailor the plan. I don't want your personal info, because for most of you, it's just an estimate, a forecast anyway. You don't have that personal income. You don't know what your earnings going to be and everything else. But try and make a forecast and make this plan something that's useful for you to come up with, and then pray for crypto. Anyway, good luck, and talk to you soon. And a couple of those movies, it's exactly the Big Short. If you never saw it, I would definitely encourage watching that one. It's just a well done movie and they go through some situations that are pretty good. And Dumb Money is more entertainment than anything else. I find the soundtrack completely annoying, but other than that, and they make it look like this, David and Goliath kind of thing, where the little guys getting some of the little guys, they maybe got a little emotional there at the end and stayed in longer than perhaps they should have. I'm not sure that they actually taught Wall Street any lessons, and they maybe sacrificed a little bit of their wealth in the process. But it's a neat concept. Anyway, and those opportunities, it does show short selling, but again, not all short selling is evil. Short selling, it provides a mechanism to keep a liquid market. The only thing worse than not having vultures out there willing to pounce on lower prices is having vultures. I mean, you need those people. You need some mechanism to keep prices from going to zero. Although in the movie they're making the argument that the short sellers are forcing the prices to go to zero. So anyway, more involved. All right, that's enough for today.